Reactive Training Systems.
Welcome to the RTS podcast. I'm Mike Tushir, and today with me I've got Paul Steinman as usual, and our guest today is Sioux-z Hartwig-Gary. Sioux-z, for those of you who maybe don't know, she is a 23-time national champion, currently holds 4 world records. Hi Sioux-z, thanks for coming on with us today.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me.
So before we get started, let's find out a little bit more about you. I mean, I don't know who maybe wouldn't know about Sioux-z because we certainly talk about you a lot. But just a little bit more about you. Let's start with those world records. What records do you hold? What weight classes and stuff like that?
I'm in the 52 kilo, the 114-pound weight class. I currently have the equipped master in the 40-year-old class, squat and total, and I have the raw master squat and the open raw squat.
Nice. So you clearly cross over. You've done both equipped lifting and raw lifting, and to a high level on both, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So what's your favorite?
You know, they each have their pluses and minuses. I'm taking a break from the equipped lifting for a while. I think it's just easier on your joints and your body that you don't have all that extra weight on your back.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that with the raw, you don't have to worry, does the suit fit right today? Does the shirt fit right? You don't need help in the gym putting your gear on. So raw to me is a lot less stress and more fun.
Yeah. I tend to agree. I mean, as you know, you and I go back a pretty good ways. And as you know, I used to do equipped lifting as well. I always thought competing in equipment was fun, but the training just took way longer. And my are short anyway.
Exactly. I was going to say that too. My training took a lot longer when I had to put the equipment on. And, you know, it's fun. There's milestones I couldn't have hit without equipment. Squatting 400, I don't think ever would have happened raw, but I finally hit it in the equipment. So competing in it, like you said, was fun because you also had people helping you wrap your knees if you wanted, although I know you used to wrap your own. But training is a real problem. Well,
Yeah.
Not a problem, but an extra hour probably.
Yeah, for each session. I would definitely agree with that. Okay, well, we kind of jumped ahead a little bit, which is fine. But I want to kind of back up. Like we said, that there are some people here that maybe don't know who Sioux-z is and just aren't that familiar with you in general. So let's start with a couple bio questions. Just kind of, where did you grow up and what's Sioux-z all about?
I grew up in a small town in South Dakota, 400 people, and I first lifted weights when I was a freshman in high school. I lifted on a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday, and then they had us test our bench and our squat max. Not legitimate, of course, but I weighed 98 pounds, benched 100, squatted 200, thought it was cool, wanted to lift weights. And unfortunately, small town South Dakota 30 years ago, they're like, oh, no, the weight room's just for the guys.
Wow.
So I didn't actually start again until 8 years later when I was in college.
Yeah, so where was that and what were the kind of circumstances around that?
I worked at Mount Rushmore, and everyone that worked there lived there. And we had a small universal machine, and the guys were training on it in the basement one day. I went and asked if I could join in, and one of the guys said, you're strong, you should be a power lifter. And I was like, that's cool. Okay, what do I do? And my last couple months of college, I started training, competed 3 times over 6 weeks, actually over 4 weeks, and got hooked. And I actually ended up coming to Maryland because I wanted to move to one of the coasts so I could be near power lifters. I actually moved here just to powerlift.
Wow, that's cool. So, yeah, wow. So powerlifting took you from South Dakota to Maryland, where you are currently. Man, that's, you learn something doing these. I don't think I knew that about you.
Well, I can't tell you all my secrets, Mike.
Right. Gotta keep things interesting, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's how you ended up out in Maryland, and from there, you just kind of took off from there. Training and competing and stuff like that.
Correct. I specifically I became a nanny just so that I would not have to worry about moving up in a job or something, and had a place to live and a car to drive and all that stuff, and joined a gym and just looked around to find meets. That was back when USPF was the IPF affiliate, and it was very, very dominant in Maryland, Pennsylvania. So I just looked at Powerlifting USA. That's how we did it in the old days, and found meets and just signed up for anyone I could drive to. And I was very blessed that my competitors helped me, because I showed up at a meet and I ended up having a competitor actually give me one of her old bench shirts, tell me I should get a squat suit and I'd be doing a whole lot better.
Wow. So that's pretty dedicated to your craft, I would say. That you would take it to those lengths. Not a lot of people would do that. So kind of to get a little bit more into this, how long then have you been training for powerlifting in particular?
I trained a few months in 1991, but I didn't really start up where I trained regular until August of 92. So it's been 24 years.
Wow. So 24 years and 23-time national champion. That's super impressive, by the way.
Well, I cheated because I did raw and geared in the same years.
Well, okay.
If you want to call that cheating.
That's kind of.
I was very blessed. In '93, I entered my first nationals, and I actually won.
Yeah.
The ADFPA, and then I lost a couple years on my way back. And I've just been really blessed. When I stay healthy, I do pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a important aspect of things too, right? A question that I get asked a lot, and I'm sure you get asked all the time, especially over the course of a longer powerlifting career. How do you stay motivated? Is that something that even enters your mind very much?
There have been a couple times where I've thought, you know what, maybe I should take a little break. It doesn't seem as fun anymore because politics or different things going on. And I'd either be remotivated because I met someone else who I started helping them get into powerlifting, so I get excited about it again by coaching. I had thought about maybe taking a little break, and then Raw started coming onto the scene, and it was new and fresh, and I started having fun. But I think getting so involved in it and having so many friends in it now, if I'm not getting ready for a competition, I'm getting ready to coach someone, and that just really helps motivate me. But also, I just want to be the best I can be. So even if I'm not competing, I want to push myself in the gym. So I like to have a meet within 6 months, so I just kind of have a goal to reach for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you the same?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's similar for me. I mean, I've just kind of gone from one meet to the next for kind of as long as I've been competing. Although there was one time when I had a space of time, no competitions on the horizon, and I thought, I'm gonna take a little break. I'm gonna do bodybuilding for 4 weeks or something like that. And
4 weeks of bodybuilding. Okay.
Right. Well, I mean, let's not go crazy, right? But, I'm thinking I'm going to take a little break from, just kind of pounding heavy weights all the time. And I thought, you know what, yeah, I'll do this bodybuilding thing. I even went out and bought a curl bar. And I've got a curl bar that's been sitting in my basement that I've never used. I mean, I've probably had this thing for, oh gosh, 7 or 8 years, I bet. And I've never used it because what happened, I sat down and I thought, okay, 4 weeks of bodybuilding, I'm going to write out my bodybuilding program. And I wrote it all out. And I've done bodybuilding stuff for other people, but when I wrote it out for myself, I'm looking at it and I'm going, I don't like how that looks, and why would I do that when I should, deadlifting would be better anyway, so I would tweak this and change that. By the time I got done tweaking it, I had a crappy powerlifting program again. And I thought,
Exactly.
yeah, I thought, well, forget it, But that's really cool to hear that coaching is a big motivational factor for you. I mean, you do strike me as somebody who gets a lot out of, kind of the personal interactions with people. You're really a people person, so I guess it shouldn't be that surprising, but I do think it's very cool.
Oh, well, thank you. I do. I love the sport so much, and I just like helping other people, and I love the social aspect. I probably try to help out new people. I talk to at least 3 or 4 people at every meet I go to because I see things, and when they're done lifting, I can't help myself. I have to give them suggestions because I'm so afraid they're going to hurt themselves or they're not going to have fun anymore. And so I do. I really enjoy the interaction.
Yeah, and powerlifting is a great way to kind of have that interaction too. Polly, I don't want to leave you out here, especially talking about motivation and coaching people. Since you coach a lot of people through your gym, do you find that the coaching aspect is also motivating for you as well?
Absolutely. And from listening to what Susie was saying, I think overall, if you were to sum it into one word, what would keep you motivated, what keeps us motivated, it would be passion.
Yeah.
And it's either the passion for lifting, the passion for lifters, or the passion for the sport. It's all comes back to the same thing, and it keeps you motivated, so you're always involved. And I found the same thing where if I'm not coaching, I'm getting ready getting ready to host a meet, or I'm getting ready to an event or be involved some way in the sport at all times. Sometimes it can feel like a lot, but then when the event is done, I always find myself wanting to figure out what the next thing is and how I can be involved in it. So I agree. And I've known Susie for a bunch of years, and I've seen Susie coaching and seen Susie lifting, and just equal amounts of passion.
Yeah. Susie, you touched on something a few minutes ago, and I don't want to go too far without talking about it a little bit more in depth. You mentioned, hey, I do pretty well. I do pretty well when, I'm healthy, basically. So can you tell us a little more about that? Like and injuries and stuff like that, that's a topic that seems to come up pretty much every time we do one of these. Because I think it's such an important thing to lift and be healthy while you're lifting, but also it's kind of traumatic to be a little bit dramatic about it. When you have an injury and you have to work through that, it's difficult. So, I mean, kind of coming back to that passion piece, helping people through things. Do you have anything that you can tell us about, like what sorts of things have you dealt with, how have you dealt with it, and stuff like that?
Well, my first real injury that actually stopped me from doing anything, I had pulled a hamstring once, but that's when I was doing the equipped lifting, and I just put my suit on a lot earlier in my training to kind of protect it, and worked. And because I had a bunch of meets coming up, it stuck around for about 16 months, I think, but I was able to continue to train. It didn't actually stop me from competing, but I did get a bulging disc in my neck, and I literally went from benching 175 for reps raw to not being able to bench the bar. no signal going to my hand. And what motivated me was finding a physical therapist who said I could avoid surgery. And if I listened and I really focused and I didn't train for 2 months and I didn't work as a massage therapist for a month, but I did all these other things to help myself, that she truly believed I could get back to lifting. So my motivation doing my little baby exercises was to get back to lifting and get back to form one day. And it was a long process. I wasn't able to compete 1 year, and it was extra tough because I'd won the Open Worlds in 2003, and it happened the end of '03, so I didn't get to defend my title in '04 or go to the World Games in '05. But I just looked forward at, I'm going to get back, and I was really motivated to compete again. And I was dating Matt at the time, so having supportive someone around you that really cares about you and understands some of what you're going through helps a lot. And I have a deep faith, and I believe God would get me through, because he wouldn't give me such a desire if I couldn't make it back to the platform.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh,
What did you do? I know you've recently had some tweaks.
I mean, same sort of thing. That's a theme that we see kind of coming up a lot, that you've got to take your time and pursue fixes aggressively. You know, while you were talking, you reminded me of something that happened with Mark Robb. I remember, and he couldn't be here hanging out with us today, which is a little unfortunate, because I'd like to get his take on this now. But I remember he and I were working together for a Raw Nationals. It's been a few years ago now. I was the one that was in Killeen, if we go back a couple years. Anyway, so he was getting really beat up as we were coming into this meet. And it was to the point where we were getting pretty concerned. Like, man, if you really push the weights hard today, I'm not sure you'll be okay afterwards, you know? And having this talk when we were there, like he'd already traveled down to Killeen and everything. And, you know, we were kind of hoping that things would pull together and that, you know, at least we would be good enough to go ahead and compete. But, you know, within a couple days of the meet, you know, the writing's on the wall at that point, you know, and you can hope all you want, but, you know, reality is what it is. And so, you know, we had kind of a hard talk that, you know, hey, we're going to skip this national meet, you know, in favor of the long-term view, you know, and we'll skip this one, we'll get healthy and we'll train, and then, you know, we'll come back for the next one, you know, and I know that sucked, and that was really not a good thing, not a fun time for Mark. But, you know, hindsight being what it is, we did it. He did get healthy, and then the next year came back, won Raw Nationals, goes on to the Masters World Championship, won the Masters World Championship, and so on. And I mean, that's a sort of thing that I see happen quite a bit. Like, we could talk about Carl Yngvar Christensen had a similar experience at the World Championship 1 year, although not quite as dramatic of having to pull out of the meet entirely, but, you know, similar. That sometimes you have to sacrifice the short term in favor of having that long term, you know, just so that the long term even exists. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, and I think Paulie would agree. The key to tell people is know what type of if you want to say injury it is. Look, if it's a tweak and you can work through it, that's fine. But if you can make things a lot worse and possibly end your career, you need to just suck it up, for lack of better words, and do what you need to do to get better first. Because too many people think, I'll just push. But if you don't listen to your body, there might not be a next time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would add, listen to your coach as well. So it's yes. And Susie, you had mentioned, and I think one of the running themes here is that, you know, we all have trusted people around us, and we trust them for a reason, and we have to listen to them. So if they're going to tell us, you know, you need to lay off for a little bit, sometimes you don't have that off button inside, and you have to allow someone else to kind of hit that switch.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, like going back to Susie being a people person and having that passion, like that's important. Not saying that you have to, just be friends with everybody. Like Susie's really good at that, but that's not everybody's personality. But it's important to have a good network around you. And even if, like for a lot of years, I was in a situation where I had to train by myself. But I mean, look, it's 2015 and everybody has the internet in their pocket. There's really not a good reason to, forego the community aspect of your training and development.
I think it's a big part of being a lifter. It's a big part of being a power lifter, and people go to these meets and they go and they train for. There's the social component, and you go to a meet and you see a lot of people and you keep seeing the same people, and the people you get to know them better. And as Susie said, lifters will help lifters out. I've rarely ever seen a lifter kind of turn away from another lifter, and I think that's one of the wonderful things about this sport.
Right. I mean, it's just like RPE, right? So when we talk about RPE, a lot of times we end up focusing on, it accounts for bad days and stuff like that, but it accounts for good days too. And in the same way, building your network accounts for those good days too. Like it may not be, helping you get over an injury or something like that. Hopefully you don't have to deal with that. But, it could be giving you training ideas or, helping you spot some sort of error before it becomes a big problem, or just kind of keeping that train moving down the tracks, keeping up your momentum.
And having people and you trust, and I've been very blessed. When I moved out here, within about a year and a half, I ran into Kurt Karwoski, who wouldn't be the programmer you'd want, but if you want someone to teach you a squat, I was squatting pretty good, but training with him, it had to be perfect. And when you surround yourself, if you have the opportunity with other people that have been doing it more or have had coaching, it's great to also know to respect people that might not be as strong, but sometimes people that aren't as strong have to work harder to even do things more perfectly to kind of get ahead.
Right.
It has to be trusting people. And I know if I have an issue and Matt and I can't figure it out, I could call Paulie, I could call Mike, I could call a few people and say, hey, do you have any ideas?
Right.
And sometimes it's funny because if you called me with the same problem, I'd have the idea you have. But when you're in the middle of it, you don't always see it.
And there's something to be said for just kind of talking that stuff out as well. Like I can't tell you how many times like I've been working on something and mulling something over and I'm like, yeah, this is a great idea. And then like I'll say it out loud and it either sounds dumb or it sounds super obvious or something like that.
Exactly.
So, I mean, yeah, just kind of talking that stuff out can help you with it as well, and even if it's not that, you can kind of flesh those ideas out a lot more. And, and so that's the thing and I always harp on this, the thing that ties all of us together as powerlifters is we're all kind of in this pursuit of the next PR, in this pursuit of, getting a little bit stronger each time, so if that's the thing that connects all of us, then using each other as resources, it helps all of us, the rising tide floats all ships sort of mentality.
And it's a great sport for introverts and extroverts because it's an individual sport. You can be fairly introverted, but when you have so many people that have the same passion as you about something, you can find, a few amount of people that you can really bond with. I'm friendly with a lot of people, but I'm good friends with a smaller group that I really consider my colleagues and my close friends that I will call or ask questions or shoot emails. So I'm very blessed. And the longer I've been in the sport, the more variety of people that I meet.
Yeah.
It's something I've noticed too from what you're saying, Susie, just from your very first move to Maryland, is that you have continuously put yourself in a position to succeed. So you sought out powerlifting. You sought out, you put yourself in the right place. You're putting the right people around you. You created a place for you and Matt created a place for yourselves to train. So all of these things are steps that you're continuously doing to continue to succeed.
Yeah. And not to push things along too much, but we've kind of hinted around at things a few times now. But so you moved out to Maryland, and you trained, and I guess some years later, you and Matt opened SSPT, Supreme Sports Performance and Training, in Rockville. I know that Matt is definitely part of your network and definitely part of, he's probably the first person that you talk to and seek advice from, as well he could be. But then, you have this added dynamic of being, you're both doing this business thing together. What's that been like?
Well, there's pluses and minuses, and Paulie can chime in because I'm sure he'll probably agree with me on a lot of these things. Like, one of the negative things is our EFX machine that used to be in the living room, so I could do it while I watched a half-hour comedy. I haven't done cardio maybe 10 times in the 6 years our gym has been open, because now that the cardio equipment isn't in front of a TV where I can watch a comedy, I don't do it. So I'm in a little less cardio shape. When you're training, even if I'm not working, even if I have an employee up front, I get interrupted a lot more in my facility than if I were training in someone else's. But the benefits completely outweigh it. I can train whenever I want. I have the best equipment available, the best bars, can control the environment. It's a great environment full of serious-minded people, whether they're competitors or they're just someone who doesn't want the regular rigmarole of a typical gym, commercial gym. So, there's a lot that people don't think about. You've got to do all the books and pay people and order products and all of those things. But I get exactly what I want to train with, and I have great people around me. The atmosphere is fabulous. Equipment is great, but if you go somewhere and you have fabulous equipment and no one to train with or people with really poor attitudes, it's no fun. But by having our own place, we've molded it, and it's become what we truly enjoy. And I think Paulie can probably chime in on that one.
Oh, I agree completely. And, it's funny. We, basically, at South Brooklyn Weightlifting Club, SSPT, evolved independently. We didn't meet until after both were established. But it's amazing how similar the training facilities are. And I think there is this kind of class of training facilities that basically end up looking the same, which is a really nice thing. But the one thing I would add to that is that sometimes I do think it would be nice to have a tiny secret room inside the gym where we can kind of disappear and train by ourselves, or if we need to, kind of get away from the distractions. But at the same time, it's what we signed on for. It's all part of the fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one benefit. We can go in on a Sunday if we really want when we're closed and train together.
Exactly. And that's that's something that I see evolving here as well, is that, groups of people say, well, we want to train at this time, and if we get someone to staff it, then we'll say, okay, we're going to open up at this time, and you guys get to train at this time. We, like you said, we've made the space, and we're doing it for ourselves, and we're doing it for the people that are part of our network.
Yeah, and like we talked about a couple of shows ago, for both of you guys, it's more of a barbell club than your traditional gym anyway, so it's got more of that club type of feel. But Paulie, I definitely think you should do that. I would personally hope that you put in like a trap door or something.
Exactly. Well, I have a panic room that just basically has a squat rack in it. That's it.
Well, I like the idea of a trap door too, though. If someone is just misbehaving, you hit the door and they're gone.
Well, you guys have been good when you've been here. What's to say I don't have the trapdoor already?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay. Maybe you do.
It's all just part of a ruse to throw people off his trail.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Well, yeah, so obviously you touched on like how, having a gym, having a barbell club affects your training both positively and negatively. You guys live pretty close to the gym, like outside of the gym, would you say it's an enjoyable way to work? Or, I mean, I know that maybe sounds like a dumb question, but I do know some gym owners that maybe aren't quite so happy about what they do.
Well, I know that I'd never seen Matt so happy to go into work once we opened our own place instead of having to go into the typical commercial gym. I, until the past couple of years, didn't really work a lot in the gym other than running things, ordering things, doing all the books. I only coached a few people that would come in every now and then to power lift with me, and I started coaching more now. But I find even if on one day I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do a massage, go do office work, and then I have to run and train somebody, what was I thinking? I always enjoy every training session that I do with someone. I love coaching. I really do. So I'm glad we have this facility, and it is a lot of work, and it's worse than having a kid because you can't just drop it off at the parent's house when you want to go somewhere. You have to figure out coverage and everything because our gym is open 6 a.m. to 9, during the weekdays and 8 until 4 on a Saturday. So in that way, it's a lot of responsibility, but the pluses outweigh the minuses. It's definitely something I think that Matt and I will have for many years to come.
Nice. You mentioned just now that you do massage. How did you get into massage therapy?
Oh, you'll laugh. It's another one of those, how in the world did you do it? I was a nanny, and something came in the mail for the lady that was a nanny before me to a massage school. And I always gave people back rubs. And I think when I was in college, I had a friend who had hurt themselves pretty badly and got a massage once a week, but asked me to work on them in the in-between. And so I was doing it all the time for my friends anyway. And I went to school so that when I gave an hour back rub to someone, my hands did hurt. Do you know how most people last about 5 minutes if you ask for a back rub? I was doing hour ones for my friends, and I simply was going to do it so my hands wouldn't hurt when I was massaging my friends. But then I just realized how much I enjoyed it and how rewarding it was, and I ended up going ahead and taking the whole course.
Nice.
But I hadn't planned it. Something came in the mail for someone else, and I was like, hey, I should sign up for that.
I love how whenever I talk to you and we talk about things that you've done or things you're about to do, you very much take advantage of opportunities that show up. And I don't know. I just think that that's a really cool thing, and that's something that a lot of people don't do. Like something comes in the mail and you're like, hey, that's interesting. I wonder how far I could take this. I know you didn't necessarily think that at the time, but that's kind of how it ends up.
Right.
Coaching, doing the online coaching thing in a similar way. Somebody emailed me. I was like, wow, you can coach people on the internet? Yeah, sure. Sign me up, And
right, now look at you.
There, and, you gradually take it more seriously as you get more steeped into it. But, yeah, I think that that's a really cool thing, just to be willing to take advantage of those opportunities.
And I think the big thing is, everybody wants results right now. They want what they want, but they don't want to risk things. Luckily, I was born with the personality. I mean, I put myself through school. I started in engineering, but I switched to math and computers. And I found powerlifting my last 3 months. And when I looked up the numbers, I'm like, if I figure out what I'm doing, really figure out what I'm doing, I could win. I finally found a sport for me. And everyone thought I was crazy because I was graduating and I was going to become a nanny. But I said, look, this is an opportunity that if I do it now, I'll do it. But if think, well, first I'm going to get settled in on my job and this and that. I may never do it. And it was scary. I mean, little girl from small town South Dakota, move off to Maryland where she knows no one. But I just saw the big picture of this could be a great adventure.
Yeah.
And I think people need to realize that it takes risk for reward. And I don't regret for a second the risk I took by, moving away by myself.
That's awesome. I think that's a really good lesson too. Good life lessons in there, Susie. I know we're running a little short on time, but there's so much to talk about. I wanted to get into a little bit of training, talk a little bit of training with you. Mainly, what's your next meet coming up, and kind of what's your training look like as you come into the what I assume to be the final weeks of training for that meet?
Well, I know that two of us are competing at Raw Nationals in October in Scranton, and Polly's coaching a crew.
Yeah.
And I think we're both coaching too, so that's the next one. I'm about 5 more training weeks maybe. And so my training it's probably going to start getting a little bit less in the volume and more in the intensity. And I might ramp up the bench volume a little bit. But it's just focusing on the 3 lifts and then just a few accessory, back movements and stuff. Now isn't the time, since I'm close to a competition, to be worrying about all the little things, at least for me. So I just really focus on doing my craft and doing it right. I'm not doing pause squats right now or anything like that. I'm just squatting.
Okay. So for you, as you come into a competition, so we're about, I want to say 6 weeks out or so now.
I think I have 5 training weeks.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So as you're coming into these last weeks, you're handling gradually heavier weights, and doing a bit less overall volume, and mixing the assistance exercises in favor of more practice in the competition lifts. So that makes sense, right? So this is this is not just something that we talk about. This is something that is actually put into practice for high-level powerlifters. You have somebody that's a 23-time national champion going to another national championship, and that's how she's getting ready for this meet in real life. I think it's cool to see how that stuff works out in reality. So when is your last heavy week?
Typically, I will take a heavy squat, and I varied throughout the years. Either my heaviest squat in the training cycle will be 2 weeks before, and the week before I'll just go about to an opener or something. Sometimes I go my heaviest one almost exactly a week out from the competition. I'll be honest with you, I haven't looked at the first couple weeks of October because Matt hasn't given it to me yet. But I think it's going to be 2 weeks before will be my heaviest this time around. And a bench, I always go pretty heavy about exactly a week out. And deadlift, I usually try to give myself at least 10 days.
Okay.
From my heaviest.
Comparatively, you're handling, I shouldn't say heavier weights, but like the event that you're best at is your squat. So right. It sounds like you're giving yourself more time on the squat than you are on either of the other 2 lifts.
Sometimes it just really depends. I used to do it exactly a week out, but I'm lifting on a Thursday now. So since I'm lifting on a Thursday and my heavy squat day is on Monday, that's why it's going to be about a week and a half out. If I was competing on a Saturday, I'd probably take my last heavy one the Friday before. So it varies, but I like to squat on either Monday or Friday as my heavy, and with Thursday being that that day. We just went with having a little more than a week. For, I'll still squat in between there, but my heavy one won't be 4 days before, because I just want to, I figure if I could lift it a week before, I don't have to lift it a day before, People who, or I'm not going to take my opener or more than my opener in the warm-up room just to be sure I have it.
Wait, you're talking about like the day of?
I've seen people the day of, when they're competing, go heavier than their opener just so their opener will feel easy. But it doesn't usually work that way.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I wouldn't think that would be a real great strategy. But you do see all kinds of crazy things, and I think that's why it's important to, continue to be involved at a local level as well. Which I'm excited to be back in Colorado, so I can take part in local powerlifting as well. I mean, for a long time, that wasn't really an option. There wasn't a local USA powerlifting around me. I would go to whatever meets were around, but it's always nice to participate in the organization that you compete in. Just kind of random thought, I guess. But
exactly. Now, Paulie, with your trainees, because I know you have people that are going to be in the competition, when do you usually have them take their heaviest lift?
Their heaviest lift will a lot of them getting ready are kind of novice to intermediate lifters. Heaviest lifts will probably be anywhere between 5 to 7 days out, and it depends on the lifter as well.
Right.
But we might if using a traditional model, if a meet was on a Saturday or Sunday, they might take their openers on a Monday. But we have people in the same boat where for Raw Nationals they'll probably take their openers the previous week, and then we'll shut it down early, because I agree with you the same way. It's just it becomes an emotional thing. It becomes a mental thing. If I see any of my lifters trying to kind of basically do the meet in the warm-up room before they get out on the platform, just to make sure that they can do it. And that drives me crazy as well.
Yes.
I guess, so, like, if you look from my planning, if you look overall, our heaviest week is usually about 2 weeks. Let's see, I guess.
In that sense, yes. The heaviest week with the volume and everything else, and then it starts to taper down from there.
Yeah, but I mean, of course, and I think you both know that we'll continue to train heavy. But one thing that I found is that whenever I hear somebody say like, "Oh, I just missed my peak," usually what they mean by that is they dropped the volume too early, and they just weren't in good condition, for the competition. They got a little bit weaker, is what it amounts to. So we'll take our heaviest week a bit further out. I think maybe we're saying the same thing, but just in a different way. Probably heaviest lifts, 14 to 21 days out. But I mean, you're still training heavy, even right up to the meet for me. We'll take openers like what you guys are saying around 5 days out if I can at all. And that's not necessarily to make sure you can get it or anything like that. And I've heard people say, your opener shouldn't be in doubt. You shouldn't need to take it 5 days out just to make sure. Well, I agree. You shouldn't need to take it 5 days out just to make sure. But for me, the point is to, one, get under some heavy weight so that you maintain your sport form. And two, keep the volume pretty low so that you're not causing a lot of damage, and so that you're able to continue recovering for the competition. And so the easiest way to do that is to take an opener and maybe a back offset, or maybe not, depending on how much volume the lifter can tolerate. And I think that's a pretty easy way to go about it. And it's just got the added benefit of, we're 5 days out, you're not fully recovered yet, and you crushed your opener. So, imagine how well that's going to go, in 5 more days once you're fully recovered.
And the first 10 years that I trained, that was the philosophy of everyone around me, so that's what I did. I always took an opener on Monday and competed on Saturday. And now it's just, I'm at least as heavy as an opener, but it's usually 7 days out instead of 5. So it's about the same. I wouldn't tell people to do it 2 days before, because for most people, or for a lot of people, they may not recover in 2 days. Because sometimes, and people don't necessarily have a great autoregulation, and they get excited because people are around them and they lift more than they should, and then they don't have the energy and the recovery that they need.
Right.
So it really, and the individual, if you have a master lifter who, it just takes them harder to recuperate in general, you're going to want to give them a little more time. You're not going to want to have them do something too heavy 4 days out or something. But I think each person can be a little bit different, but I think I agree. I think we all kind of agree that you're at least as heavy or about as heavy as your opener within the last week, typically.
Yeah. Well, look, I know that we're out of time, and I know that you've got to get going, but I appreciate you sticking around a little bit longer to help answer some of our questions. If people want to ask you more questions, or they have something else that we didn't get to, can they reach out to you? Can they contact you? How should they do that? Are you excited?
Are you talking to me? I want to make sure you're talking to me and not Polly, and jump in. Sure, they can email me or Facebook me. I'm easy to find on Facebook because it's Sioux-z, like the Sioux Indian, SIOUX-Z, Hartwig-Gary. Or they can send me an email, and my email address is Sioux-z, SIOUXZ 52, my weight class, @gmail.com. Perfect.
Well, Susie, thanks a lot for hanging out with us today. I really appreciate you chatting with us, and this was really fun. I had a good time chatting with you, so thanks.
Yeah, it was a good time. Thanks for including me.
Yeah, and Polly, good chatting with you as well. And everybody listening or watching, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.